Lisa Murkowski. The Democrats would only need 4 Republicans to join them to defeat the Trump slush fund in the United States Senate. And it appears tonight as if they clearly have those 4 votes already, and possibly many more Republican votes in the Senate against the Trump slush fund. And the Republican votes matter because it's the Republican votes that will kill the slush fund. The Democrats don't have enough votes to kill the slush fund, but with the Republicans, they can do it. And today, at the closed-door luncheon of Republican senators, almost half of them reportedly opposed the slush fund. Punchbowl News reports, quote, more than 20 senators spoke out against the administration's fund. It's rare for more than a handful of Republicans to speak up at those gatherings. When I worked in the Senate on the Democratic side and was one of the very few staffers allowed into the Senate Democratic luncheons, I'm not sure there was a single day where there were 20 senators speaking on an issue, even the most important issues of the day. One news account quoted anonymous sources from inside the room, calling it a, quote, well, not exactly quote, calling it a crap show. And I cleaned that one up. It is very clear now that the United States Senate, with Democratic and Republican votes, is going to vote to kill the Trump slush fund. And Republican Senate Leader John Thune is doing absolutely nothing to save it. In fact, today, he did everything he could to kill it by simply closing up the Senate and sending everyone home. From the start, John Thune said publicly that he was not a fan of the Trump slush fund. That was his phrase, not a fan. Majority leaders are very, very careful about every word they choose. And when a majority leader is trying to pass a bill, the leader is relentlessly positive about it in every word. If a majority leader says he's not a fan of a bill, that means he's not only willing to see senators oppose that bill, but it means he's actually trying to create a stampede against it. And today, John Thune did the worst thing you could possibly do to a bill that is in trouble. He sent the Senate on recess. Major holidays are used as important levers in the Senate to force votes. The Republican Senate has been trying to pass a reconciliation bill, which means it needs only 51 votes to pass, which means 50 Republican senators to vote for it, with the vice president then breaking the tie, and that would pass it. That's all it takes. A reconciliation bill should be the easiest possible thing for the Republican Senate to pass now. And what makes it even easier to pass is when you back it up against an important scheduled recess, like the Memorial Day recess, which will allow senators to leave town for a week. Some of them have foreign trips scheduled. Some of them have family vacations scheduled. Some of them have important graduations to attend. Some of them may have weddings to attend. And they all desperately want to leave town. And when senators desperately want to leave town, majority leaders like to use that pressure to force them to cast a vote before they leave town, an important vote, especially controversial votes, especially the difficult votes. John Thune had the power to force that vote, but he also knows how to count. And he didn't force the vote because he knew he didn't have the votes to force. And so rather than see Donald Trump's slush fund go down in defeat, John Thune decided to let the senators go home without voting. They were supposed to be voting right now, tonight. And then, if they were lucky, leave town tomorrow. There's only one thing that happens when you let senators leave town on a recess without casting that difficult vote. There's only one thing that happens. The vote only becomes more difficult. During their week away from the Senate, the Trump slush fund will only become more and more and more unpopular every single day. And when senators come back from their recess, having heard from their constituents whose tax money would pay for the Trump slush fund to pay criminals, there will be far more than 4 Republican senators opposed to Donald Trump's slush fund, and John Thune knows that. John Thune is sending Republican senators home knowing that they will come back even more opposed to Donald Trump's slush fund than they were today. Donald Trump knows he's losing. Donald Trump knows the Republican-controlled Senate now has the momentum to defeat his slush fund and to defeat his ballroom.
Are you losing control of the Senate Republicans?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can tell you I only do what's right. I don't need money for the ballroom. You know, I'm making a gift of the ballroom. This is the biggest misreporting that I've ever seen.
So Donald Trump is asked if he's losing control of the Senate, and his answer is, I don't know. So that means Donald Trump knows he has completely lost control of the Republican Senate. And then he says, I don't need money. I don't need money for the ballroom. Remember when he said, when he was first running for president in 2015, I don't need money for campaigning? He promised he would not ask for a single campaign contribution because he was so rich he would pay for his campaign himself, and he was collecting money, contributions for his campaign the next week after that lie. I don't need money was Donald Trump's lie of the day. And the next line that his addled brain came up with there that you just saw is Donald Trump saying, I'm making a gift of the ballroom. The man who is asking the Congress for $1 billion to pay for his ballroom says, I am making a gift of the ballroom. That is Donald Trump's cognitive test failure of the day. But why doesn't he make a gift of the ballroom? He's raking in billions of dollars in cryptocurrency profits and possibly insider trading. He can afford to build the ballroom with his own money. And while he's at it, he can afford to pay the criminals who attacked the Capitol for him with his own money. So go ahead, make that gift, Donald. Let's see him make a gift to any one of those criminals who attacked the Capitol for him, who tried to kill police officers for him, who tried to kill the Vice President of the United States for Donald Trump. Give those people money out of your own pocket, Donald Trump. In the new Fox poll, a record 61% in the Fox poll disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing. And that poll was taken before the Trump slush fund was announced. 76% disapprove of his handling of inflation, and 91% say that the Iran war is responsible for the spike in gas prices. Today, Donald Trump flip-flopped once again on the Strait of Hormuz and said that he is considering allowing Iran, for the first time in history, to charge tolls for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump has said that he is absolutely opposed to Iran charging tolls, and now he says he's thinking about it. He is simply the worst public negotiator in the history of American politics at any level, from president down to city councilor. Or it might be that Donald Trump's cognitive decline is so sharp now that he doesn't even know what he's saying when he's asked today about Iran charging tolls in the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran is negotiating with Oman to set up a formalization of charging tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. Is that acceptable to you?
Well, we're looking at it. We hear about it. They've negotiated. They've had a relationship with them before. And we'll see. We have total control of the Strait of Hormuz, as you know, with our blockade.
We're looking at it. He was totally opposed to it. Now his line is, we're looking at it. We're considering allowing Iran to charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, something that has never happened in history, something that no president has ever allowed. And in the same response, Donald Trump claims we have total control of the Strait of Hormuz. And again, let's just consider how addled his brain has to be for him to say we have total control of the Strait of Hormuz. If he has total control of the Strait, Why hasn't he reopened the strait to free shipping that has existed during his entire lifetime until Iran closed it down because of Donald Trump's war? Donald Trump has finally found something. He's found one thing that he thinks maybe he shouldn't do during his Iran war because it would be inappropriate. Donald Trump has played golf 14 times during his war. Donald Trump spent 2 weekends of his war at golf tournaments, 2 weekends. Donald Trump went to the Ultimate Fighting Championship performance where he had a lot of fun with Joe Rogan and other fans for hours on end. But now, finally, in the 82nd day of Donald Trump's war, Donald Trump is concerned with appearances and says he will get killed this weekend if he does not at least pretend to be paying attention to his war. And by killed, of course, Donald Trump doesn't mean killed. It's a very bad choice of words for the warmonger president who started a war he doesn't know how to win and doesn't know how to end. He used the word killed to mean he'd be criticized. Suddenly, Donald Trump claims to be afraid of being criticized. The man who is being criticized by Republicans as utterly stupid and morally wrong for his slush fund claims he doesn't want to do anything this weekend that would get him criticized. And this is his reason for maybe not going to his son's wedding.
Are you attending your son's wedding this weekend, by the way?
He'd like me to go, but it's going to be just a small little private affair, and I'm going to try and make it. I'm in the midst. I said, you know, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. That's one I can't win on. If I do attend, I get killed. If I don't attend, I get killed. By the fake news, of course, I'm talking about. No, but he's got a very a person who I've known for a long time, and hopefully they're going to have a great marriage.
So, if Donald Trump doesn't go to his son's wedding, it will be because he is afraid that I will criticize him for going to his son's wedding. It's not going to be that he just doesn't care about his son's wedding or doesn't care about his son. It can't be that, right? During the Vietnam War, while the American death tolls in Vietnam were horrendous, President Lyndon Johnson hosted his daughter's wedding at the White House while the war was raging in 1967, with American soldiers being killed during the wedding. In 1971, Republican President Richard Nixon, who lied his way into the presidency by claiming to have had a secret plan to end the war in Vietnam, hosted the wedding of his daughter at the White House while American soldiers were being killed in Vietnam that day. No president in history has used wartime as an excuse not to attend his child's wedding. If Donald Trump doesn't show up at that wedding, he will be the first president to fail to attend his child's wedding. Donald Trump is wishing his son a great marriage. That was his phrase. A great marriage. It's not clear how the Trumps define a great marriage. Donald Trump Jr. is having his second wedding right on schedule at age 41 after his father had his second wedding at age 47. Donald Trump's second marriage lasted 4 years before separation and a final divorce resolution coming 5.5 years after his second wedding day. And so a great marriage for Donald Trump Jr. in his second wedding would be 4 years to separation, 5.5 years to divorce, and on to his third marriage. And if Donald Trump is still around for Donald Trump Jr.'s third marriage, Donald Trump might not have an excuse for not attending that wedding. Our first guest tonight, Senator Alex Padilla, tried to crush the Trump slush fund in the United States Senate today when he asked for unanimous consent to oppose the slush fund. And it took only one Republican to object to that. And there was one Republican willing to do it. The Republican who refused to give unanimous consent was retiring Republican Senator from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville. Leading off our discussion tonight is California Senator Alex Padilla. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Budget Committee. He's also the top Democrat in the Senate Rules Committee. Senator Padilla, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Unanimous consent today would have been the easy way. It only took one Republican senator to stop that. But when the Senate comes back to work and you're actually able to vote on it as an amendment in the reconciliation bill to strike out any possibility of there being a Trump slush fund, that's a different story. You'll actually have a real vote count then.
Right, Lawrence. Good evening. So I do think it's just a matter of time. And one of the main reasons I took to the floor today is like, why waste time? Why fool around with this procedural, regular order, reconciliation, amendment process, et cetera, with so many Senate Republicans publicly sharing their distaste, disagreement for this slush fund proposal? Let's just put it to bed today. I will say, Lawrence, we knew this was coming long ago. I introduced this bill on January 6th of this year, on the 5th anniversary of the violent insurrection. There was chatter from Ed Martin and others around Donald Trump that they were seeking to create this fund to do payments to people who were involved with the insurrection. And it's so offensive, not just because it's our taxpayer dollars, but think about the violence in the Capitol, the threat to the peaceful transfer of power, the attacks on Capitol Police. And on day one of Trump's second term, he pardons all of them. And now he doesn't want to just issue pardons. He wants to issue payments. It's offensive, it's wrong, and we're going to kill the proposal.
So you were on this long before the rest of us, certainly before I was paying attention to this possibility, back in December, because there was enough noise. I do remember that. There was enough noise coming out of Trump world about paying these people. You wrote a bill to prevent that, and that was the bill that you, in effect, tried to pass by unanimous consent today.
Exactly. We introduced a bill in January. Clearly, Republicans are in the majority, not just the chamber, but every single committee. So they're not exactly excited about taking up the bill. But we try to force it through this mechanism. You know, if we take a step back, and you've heard so many Senate Democrats and House Democrats and people across the country complain about costs, you know, corruption and chaos. Instead of addressing the cost that so many working families are suffering from, Republicans are choosing this path. Let's not just create the chaos of, is it a reconciliation bill focused on Department of Homeland Security? Now it's the ballroom funding, and now it's the slush fund. Like, what the heck is going on? But it's corruption at its core, to funnel taxpayer dollars into a fund with no oversight, no rules, no accountability. For this president to give payments to his friends and allies, it's disgusting, it's wrong, and we're not going to stand for it.
So today, Donald Trump showed that he could not possibly be more lost in his war in Iran when he said that he's thinking about agreeing to allowing Iran to charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. This was something Donald Trump days ago was completely opposed to.
Right. I mean, anybody who's paying attention to the news on a regular basis knows you can't believe anything he says. You know, from day one of this war, they had no clear justification. It changed on a daily basis. Was it about the nuclear capabilities? Well, I thought he addressed that last year. Clearly not. Was it about regime change? Was it about the oil? No consistent, clear justification, which is why this is an unauthorized war. And now he claims one day to be this close to a deal with Iran. The next day he threatens to bomb them again. Then he's back close to a deal. You know, and now we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Is he in control or is he not? Why would he even consider Iran getting payments for ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz if he's indeed in control? He's not. That's why he's failing and he can't figure out a way out.
Senator Alex Padilla, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Coming up, today, a longtime employee of Jeffrey Epstein's testified to the House Oversight Committee. The chair of the committee said she is the best witness who has testified to the committee about Jeffrey Epstein. Congressman Ro Khanna was there and will join us next. Logical decline. I got one of the digits in Donald Trump Jr.'s age wrong in that previous segment. I meant to say that he's entering his second marriage right on schedule at age 48. 48. And his father entered his second marriage. Donald Trump had his second wedding at age 47. And so I don't know how I got that number wrong. That's just part of the mysteries of aging brain cells. One of Jeffrey Epstein's longtime assistants testified before the House Oversight Committee for a closed-door transcribed interview today. According to her written opening statement, Sarah Kellen told the committee that Jeffrey Epstein, quote, groomed me, sexually and psychologically abused me, controlled me, manipulated me, dominated me, and gaslit me until I could no longer tell which thoughts were mine and which were his. The abuse continued while Jeffrey was supposedly serving his Florida jail sentence. He even Skyped me from a computer inside the Palm Beach County stockade and ordered me to undress for him on camera. Today, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said this.
Sarah Kellen has been very helpful. Of all the people that we've interviewed thus far, this was by far the most substantive and productive interview that we've had. She gave us 3 names of people that were involved in abuse. These were new names for us. So we'll be releasing the transcript as quickly as possible.
Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, and he was there today. Congressman Khanna, do you agree with the chairman about this witness?
I agree that she gave very emotional and powerful testimony. I mean, it was horrific what she described in terms of Epstein's abuse. And she did provide 3 individuals, 2 celebrities and 1 pretty well-known politician who assaulted her. But there's a lot more we need to learn because she was very hesitant to talk about other men who were abusing the young girls. And she felt that that was not something she wanted to address. So I believe we need to call her back to get that information.
There were points during the years of investigation of Jeffrey Epstein where this witness by some prosecutors was considered a possible co-conspirator. Did you get any clarity on that today?
Well, this is one of the reasons she didn't want to answer about other young girls who may have been abused, and she didn't want to implicate herself. My view on this is that people like her who were abused, clearly raped, assaulted by Epstein or others, many of them actually to protect themselves ended up recruiting young girls or complying with what Epstein wanted. And I view them far more as victims than as perpetrators. You know, when I brought Haley Robeson to the State of the Union, the Republicans attacked her in some of the most gruesome ways, but she also was someone who was a victim, and some of these women said that they recruited others just to survive. But we need to have sympathy for them, and really it's the men who abuse these young girls who need to be held to account.
What are the investigative leads that come out of this interview today?
Well, certainly the 3 people who assaulted her, we need to call them in, have them under oath, and have investigations. The second thing is this just frustration, and I really feel an anger, because the survivors know that there are people out there who have committed assault, committed rape, and the Department of Justice is doing nothing. And for Todd Blanche to sit there in the Senate with Senator Van Hollen and to say that he's met with the survivors when that was a lie, and to say that he's is not pursuing a single investigation. That is really upsetting. And so we need to have this witness come back and also talk about some of the other abusers and really push the Department of Justice to investigate.
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
And coming up, Keisha Lance Bottoms won the Democratic nomination for governor in Georgia this week, and she will join us next. Tuesday night, Georgia Democrats chose former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms as their nominee for governor. And now Democrats are hoping that she can do something no Democrat has been able to do in more than 20 years, win a governor's race in Georgia. With Democrats celebrating her nomination, Republicans are headed to a June 16th runoff for the Republican nomination. Politico reports Trump-backed Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones clinched a spot in the gubernatorial runoff alongside billionaire Rick Jackson, who told supporters he'd govern like Donald Trump with a Southern tone. Keisha Lance Bottoms says both men are fighting for Donald Trump's approval.
Republican primary for governor. Two grown men fighting to kiss the ass of an ass.
It's embarrassing. I'm Keisha Lance Bottoms, and unlike some people, I'm not running for governor to be Donald Trump. I'm running to stand up to him, to expand Medicaid, guarantee pre-K for all kids, and lower taxes for working families. This may be funny, but what you're going through is not. Let's do something about it.
Joining us now is Keisha Lance Bottoms, former mayor of Atlanta and former senior advisor to President Biden. She's currently the Democratic nominee for governor in Georgia. She's the author of The Rough Side of the Mountain, a memoir. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. This is not an easy campaign you've entered, and you don't even know who your opponent is. Will it matter which one of these people emerges as your Republican opponent?
No, they really are the same. One has already received the endorsement of Donald Trump, and one is spending millions of dollars to try and receive his endorsement. So they are both extreme MAGA Republicans, completely out of touch with the needs of Georgians. Their concern is just pleasing Donald Trump and adding to the chaos that we are already experiencing in this state because of his policies.
What do you see as the number one issue in this campaign?
Everywhere that I go, the conversation is around the cost of living and just how expensive everything is. Even before the war in Iran, people were already complaining about the price of groceries, the cost of housing, and then you add on top of that on the refusal of MAGA Republicans to extend ACA subsidies. So now people are concerned about the cost of health care. Medicaid expansion has not happened in this state. We're one of 9 states that have not expanded Medicaid. We've already had 9 rural hospitals to close, utility costs. These are the issues that people are talking about in every single corner of the state, and they're looking for leaders who can offer real solutions.
I wanted to show something that Congressman Ocasio-Cortez revealed in a hearing about the water supply now, how it's endangered in Georgia. Let's listen to this.
I have a jar right here. This is the current drinking water in Morgan County, Georgia. Right after a data center was constructed, the metadata center was constructed, the only difference between the clean water and this was that data center. I think both of us can agree that neither one of these things are drinkable.
How can Georgia handle issues like that?
Yeah, so I want to put a pause on data centers. We don't know the difference between fact and fiction when it comes to data centers in the state. Obviously, when you see examples like that, you know that something's gone terribly wrong. People are attributing data centers to the rising utility costs. And also people are concerned about the overall impact on the environment. We've heard stories around the state of people saying that their water supply has been significantly reduced when data centers come up in their backyard. And it's a very often a complicated discussion because there are some cities who have asked and appreciated the economic boom that the data centers are bringing, but obviously balancing that with what communities are feeling and what their concerns are. So I am asking for a pause for us to do a deep dive and understand if the billions of dollars in incentives that were given to attract these data centers have been worth it.
Georgia Democratic gubernatorial nominee Keisha Lance Bottoms, thank you very much for joining us. Please come back during the campaign.
Thank you.
And coming up, one of the Trumpian madmen working under Elon Musk and Marco Rubio said last year that Ebola is a scam. Now an Ebola outbreak is killing people and forcing planes to be diverted after Donald Trump destroyed the best resource in the world to fight Ebola, the United States Agency for International Development. If Ebola reaches this country, it will be thanks entirely to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That's next. For tonight's look inside the deadly, dangerous Trumpian madness in Washington, D.C., we have this scene from an important new book. We have a problem, Julie told me. Tim just told us that he's not going to approve the Ebola response as a life-saving activity. How is this possible, I asked. It's impossible to reason with them, Natalia whispered to me. Tim told us that Ebola was a scam. He called it a scam. The Trumpian madmen led by Elon Musk, who willfully destroyed the United States Agency for International Development's unique ability in the world to manage and contain an Ebola outbreak, believe Ebola is a scam. And so the current Ebola outbreak in West Africa has reached a point where flights headed to the United States are being diverted because the United States did nothing at the beginning of this Ebola crisis because the United States didn't even know it was happening. Today, Donald Trump's Secretary of State, who was part of the team who destroyed the United States Agency for International Development and its capacity to control Ebola outbreaks, said this.
So objective number one is to make sure that Ebola never reaches the United States. Objective number two is do what we can to help the people of the DRC and neighboring countries so it doesn't spread.
And the United States is failing at those two objectives compared to previous Ebola outbreaks because Marco Rubio and Elon Musk destroyed the best tools in the world for containing an Ebola outbreak and banished the world's best experts on how to contain an Ebola outbreak. The New York Times reports, quote, the Ebola crisis in East Africa is rapidly escalating, with cases now confirmed in major population centers in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. Public health experts around the world and health workers on the ground say that the response has been significantly hindered by the near absence so far of the United States, historically the leader in any major outbreak. The United States used to fund robust disease surveillance networks across the region and maintained emergency teams to take charge in public health crises like this one. Much of that work ended with the shutdown of the U.S. Agency for International Development early last year. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has also lost hundreds of experts, including some in the Democratic Republic of Congo, who could have helped contain the epidemic. Epidemiologists and others who worked on previous Ebola outbreaks say that the fact that this one came to international attention weeks or perhaps months after it began and had already spread across international borders is a direct result of the weakened surveillance. American officials did not learn of the outbreak until Thursday, 9 days after the World Health Organization did, and almost a month after the first person died. The incubation period for Ebola can be 21 days, which means that people can be spreading the disease unknowingly for weeks. And before health workers know that there is an Ebola outbreak, they might find themselves treating sick patients without knowing that those patients actually have Ebola. that would leave those health workers completely unprotected, that they usually need to have necessary heavy protective equipment when they are dealing with Ebola patients. My heart is breaking for those workers, said Megan Fotheringham, who was USAID's Deputy Director of Infectious Diseases, including during the Ebola outbreak in Ituri between 2018 and 2020. They are not protected, and they are putting their lives on the line. She added that USAID would have moved stockpiles of personal protective equipment that it maintained within hours. Joining us now is Nicholas Enrich. He was USAID's acting assistant administrator for global health before he became a whistleblower in the first weeks of the Trump presidency, and is now the author of the important new book, Into the Wood Chipper, a whistleblower's account of how the Trump administration shredded USAID. Nicholas, thank you very much for joining us again tonight. What is your sense of the current situation in this Ebola crisis, and what can be done given that our resources have been so destroyed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
Yeah, this is an outbreak we have not yet got under control, and I think the concern is that we started off without the resources that we had. Unfortunately, USAID used to be on the scene, and we had a playbook that allowed us to respond quickly to Ebola outbreaks, and we had in the past. And unfortunately, with those resources gone, and with USAID no longer able to provide services or to partner with local organizations in the region, the State Department is left scrambling and trying to having to improvise and make up the playbook as they go along. And unfortunately, decisions that need to be made in hours are unfortunately slipping, and it's taking days or sometimes even weeks. And that's what's letting this outbreak continue to spread out of control.
And do Elon Musk's planted workers at USAID and still think that Ebola is a scam?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at USAID in 2025, there was another Ebola outbreak, and I can tell you, as I wrote in the book, that the DOGE team and the political appointees just continued to ignore the warnings of experts and would not let us implement a robust response, including not even allowing us to screen passengers at airports for symptoms of Ebola before they got onto international flights. So it's really no surprise to me that they are not taking the current Ebola outbreak seriously, and it's costing time, and it's unfortunately costing lives.
What happens if Ebola reaches the United States?
I think, we are at risk. Some of Americans already have tested positive, but I don't think that this current outbreak, luckily, is likely to be the one to cause the next pandemic. I think the bigger risk that we're seeing is the lives that are being lost in DRC and potentially Uganda now. But I think what we're seeing that is a true risk to Americans is just how much ground we've lost by giving up the resources and the abilities of USA to conduct surveillance and monitoring. We have set ourselves back at least a decade in terms of pandemic preparedness. And what I'm really worried about is what happens when a likely candidate, a pathogen that might be the next pandemic comes our way, because we have lost all the ground that we had made following the COVID pandemic, and even are set back to where we were during the 2014 Ebola outbreak.
Nicholas Enrich's new book is Into the Wood Chipper, a whistleblower's account of how the Trump administration shredded USAID. Nicholas Enrich, thank you very much for joining us again tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Lisa Murkowski, the Democrats